Hello everybody, my name is Joost, and if you hadn't noticed, Halloween's coming up. Unless you're watching this on Halloween, in which case... Happy Halloween! So, I love Halloween, I love horror, so for this year's Halloween I want to do something special. So this year, I present to you my personal horror history timeline. In this video, I will show you the horror books, movies and games that influenced my life. From my humble beginnings, from the picture books that I read as a 5 or 6-year-old child, to the horror games that I played just yesterday. And while doing this, I will recommend to you 3 scary books to read on Halloween, 3 scary movies to watch, and 3 scary free games to play. Stick around. I guess when I really started to dig, I actually found out that it started a lot earlier than I thought. Like I said, I was about 5 or 6 when I bought my... Well, I didn't buy it. I borrowed from the library a picture book. It's called Funny Bones. Or it was actually called Bot and Botje because I'm Dutch. I must have rented that book at least 20 times. It's about a couple of skeletons who go out into the night and, well, they do all kinds of fun stuff together. They go to the zoo, which is a skeletal zoo of course. They go to the park to play with their skeletal dog. And when the sun rises, they go home. What is that you say? That doesn't sound very scary? Objection! Actually, I don't object. It isn't very scary, but as a child I found it very intriguing. That there was a bunch of living skeletons only going out to the night. While it wasn't that scary, it did intrigue me. So I do think this is where my passion for horror started. It didn't take me long to get into the real scary books, and for most children this is always the same writer. R.L. Stine. This is actually Goosebumps, this is the Dutch version, Kippenvel. I think most children have read this. I devoured these as a child. Whenever we went on a holiday with my parents, most kids were playing at the beach. I would spend all day in our little camper reading these kind of books. They're actually quite good. I actually reread this one. This is The Curse of the Pharaoh, not that long ago, and it's actually still really good. And from there on I kept reading more and more. I actually moved on to the adult library. Not that kind of adult books, you filthy man. But yeah, I moved on pretty quickly, so I started reading more and more books. I mean, I've got a whole shelf full of them. So reading is actually a great way to spend Halloween. Just curl up under your blanket with a candle. Actually, that's a fire hazard. But curl up under a blanket with your flashlight and read a couple of books. So here are 3 great books to read on Halloween. The first is The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. Now Stephen King cited this author as the master of horror, and Stephen King obviously knows his stuff. So the great thing about this book, it's fairly short, so you could probably read it in one evening. And this is a book where the Hellraiser movie was based on. So if you don't know the story behind this book, it's actually pretty popular, but this family moves into a new house, and the father character has a brother who has been missing for quite some while. What he doesn't know is that his brother has been, camping out in that house for a while now. But he disappeared. Why? Because he found a puzzle box. And if you solve this puzzle box, actually demons come out. It's like a demonic possession. And these demons are called the Cenobites. The Cenobites pretty much got a hard-on for pain and they love to inflict it. So all kind of stuff. I just won't spoil it. It's a great fucking book. So excuse my French. So I know it's Halloween is only a couple days in the future. But down in the description I will link the link to an ebook, so maybe you can get it that way. I will leave a link to all the products I will cite here, so down in the description. My second recommendation is anything Stephen King. Stephen King is a real master of horror, and you've probably known at least a couple of these books, so. There are a couple of shorter ones, he's also got some short story collection, so this is a great way to spend Halloween. And my last recommendation for Halloween is short stories by Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was the original Gothic master of horror. This book is actually from, let me see. Well, it doesn't really say, but I think it's late 19th century. I mean, it's really old, but it's really good. So you probably also know this one, at least a lot of people do. But he's got so many stories, and they're all short stories, so. You can read a story in a couple of minutes, so you can pretty much fill your evening with this book. I think my first horror movie, if you can even call it horror, I mean it was a Disney movie, I was watching this movie with my parents when I was about 12 or 13. It's called A Nightmare Before Christmas, I'm sure all you know. But that was the first time that I really figured out that there were scary movies out there, even though it was scary for me. I was pretty much a big woos, so. And from there on after, I started watching a lot of, real horror movies, like Halloween was a great one. And up to this day, I've got a full hard drive full of movies. I think that watching horror movies is the way that most people actually spend Halloween. Unless you're like American and you do trick-or-treating, but I'm Dutch, so we don't really have that there. So we have to improvise. So here are 3 great scary movies to watch. Now the first comes with a warning. It's called Return of the Living Dead and it's one of my favorite zombie movies. So the warning is this. There's a lot of full-on female nudity and a lot of blood and gore, so you will probably want to watch this without pants on. It's about a bunch of punkers who come to party on the graveyard. It's the biggest stereotype out there, but that's how it goes. And there's a chemical spill that comes down through the rain, zombies rise up from the earth. I mean, it's a zombie movie, what's there to expect? I mean, I'll pretty much let the clips speak for themselves. Anyway, this does come with a warning, full-on female nudity, a lot of blood and gore, but hey, what can you expect from a horror movie, right?
Who's there?
For my second recommendation, I started now looking through my archive for some really old movies, some real classics. So a great movie to watch is the original Dracula. I believe it's from 1931, should have written that down, but I am an idiot. The movie is made by Bela Lugosi, it's the original vampire movie. Again, there's not that much to say, we all know Dracula, but most of us haven't really watched the movie, so this is a great way, again, to spend Halloween, and I should really stop saying that same sentence. It's getting annoying.
More Wolfbane, more effective than Wolfbane, Count. Indeed.
And for my last horror movie recommendation, I have Hellraiser. Now, if you actually are going to read the books, this is a great one, because it's actually based off the Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. The Hellraiser is, the movelization. Is movelization a word? I don't think so. But actually, it's based upon this book. So it's about the Cenobites invading the house of, I forgot their names. I'm horrible with names. I'm sorry. Again, for the movies, I'd like to let the clips speak for themselves. It's one of my favorite movies. There are actually 8 of them. The last 6 aren't that great according to a lot of people, but I love them. What can I do? But the first one is definitely a classic. I mean, the scene in which the main character's brother rises back from the floorboards after the Cenobites tore him apart. It will just haunt you. It's awesome. Watch it. I think I was about 14 when I played my first horror game. A lot of people say that games aren't all that scary. Well, tell that to a frightened 13-year-old, because the first game, scary game I played was Fear. And I actually just had the demo. And there's this one part in which Alma, the creepy little ghost girl, just walks past the hallway. And I seriously had to play like this. It freaked me out. There actually weren't that many AAA horror games, so it was actually a while before I really started to play them intently. But then, from about 2 years back, the indie horror scene started. So there were a lot of indie games that were coming out. So there are a lot of things on the market right now. So here are 3 great free scary games to play. First on my list is Eep. And as a little background story, I still remember when my parents took me to see the Salvador Dalí Museum in Spain. It really sparked my interest in surreal art, and while these surreal paintings really creeped me out, it was far from as horrifying as what Eve endured. Eve is a 9-year-old girl who visits an art exposition with her parents of the now deceased surreal artist Guertina. But soon the lights begin to flicker, and she finds that she's all alone, except for the paintings, which seem somehow alive. After traveling through a painting, she gets lost into a horrifying museum where the art is more than alive. Now don't let these simple graphics fool you. Eep is a work of art. With phenomenal puzzles, great story, a creepy atmosphere and a great musical score. When I played Eep, I was genuinely creeped out and intrigued by its world. It can be completed in one sitting, so it's great for Halloween. And even if you've already played it, Eep has multiple endings, so that should keep you busy for a while. Eep is free and the download link is down in the description. Now Eep had a really interesting art style and it works for it. It's really intriguing. The second game on my list is also really has an interesting art style. It's called 7 Days. Now it was one of the first pixelated horror games, meaning that the graphics are purposely low res and it really works. Again, it has a really surreal style. It was actually one of the first games that I played on my channel and it really freaked me out. The game goes like this. You wake up in a bed in what is presumably your own house. You have to make your way through the house and a lot of the doors are locked. You have to find keys. Are really simple puzzles, but this name keeps popping up. Sam Greenville. You have to find Sam's room and you don't know why. And you keep waking up in the same bed. You have to survive 7 days. And I'm not going to spoil anything else. The story is actually great. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. There are great jump scares. I mean, I really jumped out of my chair a couple of times. It's phenomenal. The art style, the story, everything just comes together in an amazing experience. Again, this is a rather short game, making it great for Halloween. Now the third and last game on my list is called The Cursed Forest. Now some people won't really like the low-res graphics on the first 2 games, and I'm kind of opposed to that because I'm a big fan of the indie gaming scene. Can't really help it. So the last game is made on the CryEngine. It's again free, but it's got superb graphics, better than some of the AAA games out right now. So it's called The Cursed Forest, and the story goes like this. Your mother is in the hospital, so you pretty much rush over there and you decide to take a shortcut to a place some call Cursed. Of course, a shadowy figure appears in front of your car, you crash and you have to make your way out of the forest. Now you figure out that a ritual went down there. A little girl was sacrificed by her parents, you have to find her bone to reverse the ritual. The story is rather simple, it's made by a Siberian game company I think. But the graphics are great, the story is, alright, but the jump scares and the atmosphere, it's phenomenal. Again, rather short game, can be completed in one sitting, making it again great for this Halloween. And that's basically how I grew with horror. I know it wasn't too detailed, but I wanted to keep this video rather short. I didn't want to bore any of you. So yeah, it really began with Funny Bones for me when I moved on to Goosebumps or R.L. Stine children's books. Pretty soon I moved up to the adult library, started to read a lot of books. And not only then that with my parents when I watched A Nightmare Before Christmas that I figured out there were scary stories out there. I became a real fervent fan of horror movies, and when I became 34 I started to play scary games, and now I've got a channel full of playthroughs of them, so get away book. Man, I've got so many horror books and novels and movies, especially books. I mean, I could literally bathe in them. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, there are a lot of other things you can do on Halloween. And you could carve a pumpkin. I actually made one with my girlfriend. This is a picture of it. Also, a lot of cities have zombie walks, in which you can, you know, dress up like a zombie and engage in these walks through the city, just creep people out. It's a lot of fun. I've done it a couple of times. It's great. And you know, you could also come up with your own little things to do. Why not turn your house into a haunted mansion and let the kids come through? Just even if your country doesn't do trick or treating or something like that, just set it up yourself. A lot of countries don't do enough for Halloween, so make your own Halloween. So what I wonder is, what is your personal horror history timeline? Tell me in the comments. Maybe you don't like horror, maybe you hate it. Tell me why in the comments. Leave a comment. And of course subscribe to my channel for more videos. Here's a shiny subscribe button. Click it. Click it. Did you click it? Great. And of course, happy Halloween.